One of the most difficult things a business owner or a leader will have to do is to terminate someone. Just somebody was doing fine, and for whatever reason, the romance is over, and you need to do something about it. And I want to use today's Lunch Bites and Leadership Insights to tell you what to do when it's time to break up, or maybe the things you need to think about before you decide it is time to break up. If you're new, Lunch Bites and Leadership Insights, the purpose of this channel is to give you leaders the benefits of my consulting practice and expertise of solving the problems that I've seen that come up the most often, and to do it in 15 minutes or less so you can get the quick just-in-time answers you need and still enjoy your lunch and do all the other things that you need to do. And today we're going to talk about terminations, what to do when it's time to break up, and maybe what to do to make sure that you're breaking up for the right reasons. So grab your sandwich and let's get to it. First of all, terminations are awful. They're awful for everyone involved. They're awful for the business leader. If you have people support, like HR support, they're awful. I've been on all sides of the equation. I've been the employee being fired. It's certainly awful for them. But sometimes they need to be done. And what I have found over the years, the best way to explain this, to kind of dilute the emotion of it a little bit, is to think about the employee life cycle as a romantic relationship. Kind of fits in with this theming that I've been doing lately with the videos. So think about like when you're in the interview cycle, you're dating, like when you are, going through the interview process, reading resumes, people are interviewing, the candidates are interviewing, everybody's dating, everybody's lying, just like you do when you first date. If you met your partner for a long time, at the beginning, you're just kind of slightly telling each other what's going on. The candidates probably embellishing some attributes they have, and you as a company, you're not telling them everything either. I mean, let's be honest. You're not telling them. One of the questions they're going to ask is, why does the last person left the position? You're not going to tell them, well, it's because the guy was, their boss is a psychopath and it's a very toxic thing and we can't get rid of them. So the person decided to quit. You're not going to say that either. So you're dating, you're giving your best picture. Then day one is marriage. And then after marriage becomes you are settling in. And how these work in romantic relationships is you start letting your guard down and you maybe not doing the things that you did at the beginning of the relationship to keep the romance nice and warm. So think of it that way. And when it comes time to terminations, I do think them mostly as it's just time to let go of the relationship. Could be that they're not bringing even 75% of the things that they brought to the relationship when they first became a part of your employment, or something could be happening to them personally that's just affecting their performance and it's just not working out. So think of it in that way. Like it's a life cycle. It is a cycle. Almost nobody stays at their jobs for long term anymore. And long term, I even mean by 5 years, for many reasons. So think of it that way, and that might help the emotion of the situation. And now let me get into, I just really want to give you some tips that I would ask you. You come to me, you've hired me as a consultant, or I was, when I lived in HR as a company, people come to me all the time and say why they, I want to fire Mike. I'll just randomly pick a Mike. I want to fire Mike. And I have to take them through a process to help them understand maybe it's good to let Mike go. Maybe it's not time to let Mike go. So let's find out what we should do. The first thing I'm going to ask, I'm going to get my glasses on here so I make sure I get all the details. I'm going to ask you why now? Like, what is the difference in the person's performance between now and when you originally hired them that is making it has to be done now? Everything was fine, but for some reason something's gone wrong. So I'm going to ask you if it's performance, they're just not doing their job correctly anymore. Can they not adapt to change? You've introduced a new process and they're just being resistant or they can't handle it. or is it a culture fit? They've become disgruntled, for lack of a better word, and you just can't see how it's going to be repaired. So first I'm going to ask you why. Why do you want to terminate this person now, and what is your rationale? So once you got that answer in your head, I'm going to ask you a couple of more things. The next thing I'm going to ask you is, do they know that there is an issue? You'd be surprised how many times people have come to me and said they want to terminate an employee, but they have done nothing due diligence wise to let the employee know that there was something wrong. And if you really go down the HR track, the discipline track, the first question HR usually asks you is that, do you have any documentation on it? Almost always that answer is no. So that's why, your HR partners may be on you all the time about making documentation, because it helps to have a trail of some sort, formally or informally. You don't always have to fill out those forms. You can't just put it in an email recapping conversations. So everybody can say with a good heart and intention that the employee did know there was a problem and they did not have the skills, knowledge, or abilities, or the kind of motivation to change. So that's the first thing I'm going to ask you is that, do they know about it? If they know about it and they're not choosing to change, well, that somewhat makes it easier to terminate them because you do know you've done your due diligence. If the answer is no, they don't know, then I'm going to walk you through as your partner to help you make sure they do know. So you might need some help with how to coach them, or you may actually need to go through the formal discipline process if you have one. So that's the second part is, do they know, does the employee know that it is getting close to time to break up? My next thing is, why are you terminating them now, or what is stopping you from terminating them now? So a way you to think about this is that, now it's affecting the morale of the team, right? So we've all had that where you have that one bad apple that is affecting the rest of the group. They're negative and before it was okay, but it's just escalated to a level they got to go, right? That could be one reason why you want to do it now, or why you need to stop it now. Another reason is that truly business needs make it where you're deciding when it is a good time to terminate the person. So you have a big project, it needs to be completed. Yes, are these things, hard for sure, but sometimes business needs do take over, and you can handle the bad apple for a little bit longer until you get what you need done. All the while, though, you still are coaching and maybe hoping to salvage the relationship. But that could be why. It could be also that, the holidays are coming up. I've been a part of a big project where they decided to close down a full operation, and they didn't want to do it because it was last quarter, December, nearing Christmas. So they were waiting till after Christmas to do it. But the bad thing is, you can imagine the rumor mill started and they found out anyway before Christmas. So it's pretty horrible. But that is one thing to consider. You're trying to think of timing, like before school breaks, that kind of thing. So those are things that might be hesitating you to, terminate now. So why do you need it now versus it's been a problem for 6 months and you didn't deal with it? That could give you some problems later on. So that'll be the next question I would ask you is, why now? And do you need to wait, or can it be done immediately? So these are the danger ones that you really, when you're talking about terminations, is that, are you thinking the reason you're not doing it is you're thinking about their personal situation? I've had this, because you do know when you're terminating somebody that you're affecting their livelihood. Absolutely. So if you let that interfere with your decision making, say one person has a family and they're the sole income and you need to terminate them, because you need to get rid of the head count, but then another person you know is a solo person, maybe they have some other financial support. So you could terminate either one of them, and then you lean towards the person that has the other financial support because you know what it's going to do to the impact of their personal life. You can't do that. That really needs to be decisions based on performance, all things being equal, who should go. Another thing that can get you into trouble, and this is why I believe people are more skeptical of terminating people, is that you believe you're in some legal limbo. You know, that you don't want to fire a person that's maybe in one of the classifications because you're afraid of legal retaliation. So, in that way, you definitely want to contact an employment lawyer. I mean, like if you're like on the edge, or and if you need one, let me know. I mean, in Florida, I certainly know several great ones. But you want to get advice. If you think it's something gray, get some advice. It's worth the investment to do so, to get that answer clear in your head in case like you do get some summons. I've gotten some summons where it was completely legitimate. We fired the person for the right reasons. They tried to see a hole in the termination process and they went for it, but I was able to give them documentation, give them our rationale, and we were completely fine. And I always felt like that as an HR leader. It's like I always did my due diligence. So that is another area, is that you're worried about possible legal ramifications. And there are some other things too about retaliation. You want to be sure it doesn't look like retaliation. Again, that's where you want to get legal advice involved and say like, okay, where's my lines? What do I want to do? But I will say, to wrap this up, is you do need to deal with poor performers or people you need to free up for other opportunities. Not dealing with them one-on-one is really something that's going to hurt your organization. It's going to hurt your leadership. It's going to tell people where your boundaries are and that they're very loose. And it is very hard to be effective when that is your kind of leadership. What's the word I'm looking? The idea of your leadership is that your lines are very slippery. So I advocate that, make smart decisions with your people when you need it. When someone's just not performing anymore, help them get to where they need. If it's not going to happen, it is usually better to let them go. I would say like 85% of the time. The 15%, I think I'd call legal counsel and see what I could do. So if I can help, because I know this is really hard, feel free to reach out to me. You can get me in all kinds of ways. So I hope this helped. It's not something to be afraid of. It's something to do the right way so that everybody remains healthy. Your organization remains healthy. Your reputation, that's the word I was looking for, is healthy. And you're doing really the best for the employee. It may seem harsh at the time, but it actually, everybody I've seen that terminated, eventually they found their home and they were much happier. So I hope this helped. Enjoy the rest of your lunch, and I'll see you next time.